Hello and welcome to IBTM Meets, a series of interviews with leading figures in the meetings and events industry. My name is Laura Jensen and I'm the IBTM Content and Community Executive. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Helen Moon, founder and Chief Wellbeing Officer at EventWell, which is a not-for-profit organization looking to increase awareness of mental health and wellbeing within the events industry. Hi Helen, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Brilliant. And so we're talking today on World Mental Health Day about mental health 18 or so months on from the start of pandemic. So why don't we start with, I suppose, a simple question or a very obvious one. In what ways do you think the pandemic has really affected mental health, predominantly in event professionals, but I suppose overall as well?
Well, the important thing to remember is that we all have mental health in the same way that we have physical health. So it's just the traumatizing impact for a lot of people. That's the main reason how it's the main impact and effect it's had on people is that, the not being able to work, industry being shut down, people losing jobs, businesses closing, redundancies, furlough. All of those kind of those life events that can be traumatic for some people. So basically what people have experienced, and also you've got to remember that they're being isolated in our homes and locked down and not seeing loved ones and being away from friends and family and that support network that we refer to. So the impact the traumatizing impact that can have on people. We were just talking about isolation impact, weren't we? That can happen in events sometimes. So imagine that for a lot of people that have been locked down in their homes for a long period of time, and to schools and the whole juggle struggle for a lot of people that have had to juggle homeschooling and work and trying to run businesses and keep businesses going, not just running businesses, trying to keep businesses going.
Absolutely.
In our industry. So all of those immense pressures that people have faced over the last year, and they are pressures, but when the pressure becomes unmanageable, it becomes a stress. Okay. And stress can have two effects. It can either be positive, so it can be eustress, or it can be negative, and that's distress. So a lot of what people have experienced over the last 18 months to 2 years is distress. And that's impacted on people's mental health. So we've got obviously a lot of people in our industry that already experienced poor mental health and what that feels like, but also a lot of people now in our industry that have faced poor mental health for the first time. So that lived experience, I think, has increased in the industry. So there's more of an understanding now, I think. So that's probably, I don't want to say, probably one of the positives that have come out. So our compassion, understanding and empathy towards mental health has changed and increased. So that I would say that's been the biggest effect of the pandemic. And we just have to watch for that. We were already an industry pre-pandemic that approximately had 1 in 3 of our event professionals struggling with their mental health every year. Looking like anything from experiencing negative stress, distress, to anxiety, to depression, to more severe kind of mental health experiences, poor mental health experiences and conditions and disorders. But mind are actually saying a mind statistic is 1 in 4. Or 1 in 6 in work. So for the industry, that's 1 in 3. That's very high for our industry. And we've always known it's a stressful industry. I remember that balance between that positive stress or negative stress. It's a stressful industry. But Mind are now saying that what was originally a 1 in 4 statistic is a 1 in 2 statistic. So roughly around about 50% of adults now have experienced or are struggling with their mental health, have experienced poor mental health, and young people it's 2 in 3. So it's high, and younger people are more susceptible to negative and poor mental health. Anyway, so, and we're a young industry, remember, so there is a mental health emergency at the moment. Many of us who work in the mental health space, even at the very start, that very first lockdown, we're kind of, EventWell, we wrote a letter to the UK Prime Minister. We did get a response, not quite the response we wanted, but we did get a response. And we highlighted immediately then at the very beginning the impact that lockdown was going to have on the mental health of an industry that already experienced high levels of poor mental health. So there is a mental health emergency. It is happening. There are people struggling, and we just need to be mindful of that, pardon the pun, as an industry kind of moving forward in terms of how we return to work, how we get back on site, and just start thinking about doing things in a slightly different way, more supportive, more compassionate, more empathetic way.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think definitely the fact that so many people have experienced some form of stress, some form of anxiety over the past 2 years really does mean that hopefully the industry is far more aware of this than they were before. And I suppose looking now at, I don't want to use too much of a cliche phrase, but the sort of light at the end of the tunnel, the return of live events, I imagine that provides a whole new type of stress for people to work towards, people to kind of accommodate as they return. Because I think as an industry, it's very exciting to be returning to live events. We've spoken about the fact that you're heading to the Excel soon. I was there last week, and it's exciting, but also slightly unsure, I think, for some people about returning to that. So what do you think is the best way for someone to look at returning to a live event? How do you think that might help their fears be allayed in some way?
Well, we've got to remember that we're creatures of habit. So we like things done in certain ways, and all of us are like that. Some of us are more than others. It's that whole stepping outside of your comfort zone, which in a lot of cases is very good for your mental health and well-being, because it pushes you and motivates you and inspires you. That's what's great about our industry in the first place, because it is an industry that will push you outside that comfort zone. You're in the learning space when you're outside of that comfort zone, but you're also in that change zone. And that can increase people's anxiety levels and their stress levels. So it's just being mindful of that, where we've had 18 months of change where we've not been able to hold events in that, not so much in the live, because a virtual event is still a live event, but in that in-person kind of format, we've not been able to do that. We've had to do things in a very different way, but it's taking the positive from that actually it's been a good move for our industry, because it's we've all had to take that step outside the comfort zone to learn about technology, to learn about new ways of doing events, to learn about hybrid. So but again, it's being mindful of the fact that everyone's outside of their comfort zone at the moment. No one's gone back to the comfort zone yet.
That's very
and
true.
When people are outside of that, anxiety levels are going to be increased. So it's just, being gentle, treading carefully, trying to take it as slowly as you can. I know that there's people want to recoup losses and get back to business, and that's important. That is important for the sustainability of the industry, to the resilience, to get us back to doing what we do best. But it's just being mindful of people's anxiety levels at the moment, just because of that comfort zone analogy kind of stuff. Everybody's outside of it at the moment because we're getting back to what we knew before, but we're still doing what we did before, but in different ways.
Yeah, of course. And everyone's comfort zone is different. So you may see some people go, great, amazing, I'm back, I'm going, I'm already at events everywhere. And you may see some people who are very much still happier attending those virtual elements, being part of them online while they get the confidence back to step out of their comfort zone, like you said.
I call us an industry of introverts. People expect this in our industry to be quite extroverted. And we are people, but that doesn't mean that we're extroverts at all. You actually find that a lot of event organisers and event planners, even on the operational side, are quite introverted kind of stuff. They like being behind the scenes. So it's just being mindful of it is the best analogy is that comfort zone analogy at the moment. Everyone's outside of their comfort zone at the moment, which means that our anxiety levels, and even more so for the introverted industry that we are in a lot of ways. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure some of those conversations around comfort zones for events are similar to the ones coming up around companies asking people to either return to the office or continue working from home. And I mean, I know that's a slightly different situation, but it must be similar in some ways about, how can people adapt to returning to the office after not having been in it for months and months?
Yeah, Yeah, well, it's the same whether people are returning to the office or people returning to that in-person event format kind of stuff. Because it's, me today did wet hair because I'm going on site in literally an hour and a half kind of stuff. I'm going on site, so it's, and I found myself this morning kind of thinking to myself, kind of stuff. Oh boy, I'm gonna miss. Oh, I'm not at home kind of stuff. I'm going to miss my little girl coming home from school kind of stuff. Like I've even turned around to the dog this morning kind of go, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to take you for a walk today. It's all of those little elements, and it's the same for people returning to the office, because that's the nature of our industry. People returning to the office as well. People that haven't had to do the commutes. Dads, and we talk about mums with kids and the flexibility for mums, but also kind of bearing in mind dads with kids as well, who have had 18 months of spending a lot of time with their kids kind of stuff. So, people's attitudes have changed, because a lot of people now are turning around and saying, I want more of this, thank you very much. I've actually in a lot of ways, there's been a lot of positives to the last 18 months in terms of that family time and that being able to just have a little bit more balance.
Absolutely.
And balance is important. So it's bearing in mind that you are going to get some people that will want to work from home every day. I'm fortunately I'm for the hybrid model. So from a mental health and wellbeing perspective, I think for team cohesiveness and communication, which are really all very, very important for mental health and wellbeing, you need to have that time as a team, face to face, in person. I don't think at 100% working from home model will work, particularly for what we do in terms of project management. You need to be with people when you're being creative, but you can't do that via Zoom. So it's finding the balance that works best for your team. So some people are going to need more flexibility than others because of whatever life commitments they might have, and that's not just parents. Flexible working should be offered to, or should be available to be applied for by anybody. It's not just a mum thing. That makes I'm a mum. It's not just for mums. It should be available for anybody who would need it for whatever it is they're trying to juggle in their lives, regardless. But it is being sensible and ensuring that there's an option for something works for everybody, and that's it's difficult, but if you can get that right, if you can get that mix right, then you'll hit that sweet spot.
Absolutely. I mean, I know personally, while I'm very happy to be back in the office a few days a week, it's nice sometimes to be working from home and be able to put my washing on, so I don't have to do that when I get home, or I don't have to cook when I get home, or things like that, being able to juggle that. And I think that will be really valuable for people to be able to maybe take time to do those life admin tasks during their day so that they can have more of that divide when they finish work in the evenings.
Yeah, and some people are more productive, to being able to step away from the team. One of the things that we advise from a mental health space as well is, even in offices, is having quiet workspaces for people to be able to go to. So if they need that productivity hour, where they just need to concentrate, just be mindful and concentrate on a task in hand without interruptions, then that can be really good. And that's one of the big benefits that working from home gives people, is that productivity kind of power hours that they need. They can get away from the noise, switch off the phone, and just concentrate on something that needs to be done. So, it's not, working from home isn't just being able to pick your kids up or being able to, like you say, put your wash on. It's being able to have those power hours of productivity and creativity that can really kind of boost a project and ensure that it's done well. So there's pluses all round.
Absolutely.
But it's a question of balance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's balancing that creativity by yourself when you're productive at home with the creativity that you get when you can sit down in a room of people and go, what should we do? What should we come up with?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, I imagine that that's probably going to be the main focus for a lot of employers, a lot of events companies looking to bring the industry back into the office, bringing that connectivity, but also that flexibility. And I suppose one thing that I wonder is, when managing that, because a lot of times I think some people will probably feel like maybe they have to do more of one or more of the other. What sort of tools do you think there are? What sort of opportunities do you think there are for people to make sure that they're kind of keeping that balance?
Well, it's I suppose it's keeping a check from an individual level. Do you mean kind of?
Yeah.
It's keeping a check in terms of, we use Wellbeing wheels. It was really, really good exercise to see and check what kind of balance you have in your life and the tools and stuff you can use. And they're really, really useful. So they're used across, Team GB use them a lot as well.
Okay.
In terms of their training, the British cycling team use them. So basically a Wellbeing wheel is where you take different aspects of your life and then you give it a score. And that's where you can see if there's balance or not. So, and you can add each of the different segments of the wheel can apply to anything that it might want to be. So there's 5 dimensions of wellbeing, for example, which are career, financial, social, personal, and community. And you can use those if you wanted to, and give yourself a score out of 10 for each. And it's just a really visual, tangible way of kind of saying, oh, right, okay, so I'm not too happy with my financial health at the moment, so I need to do some work there. So one of the things we do with a lot of the groups that we work with, we do one for lifestyle and we do one for life skills as well.
Okay.
So, and that can be really useful. When we go out and do lectures in universities, we'll get the students to do one. So the lifestyle one is always all about, how much alcohol do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you exercise enough? How's your sleep? And we'll get people to score out of 10, and then it's whether or not you score out of 10, you do these little, put a little link in, and you join the circle up, and it's how circular is that circle. So it's not always about getting 10 out of 10, because that's not balance kind of stuff. So it's all about, where are the certain aspects of your lifestyle or the life skills that you have, so time management and mindset and all those kind of different aspects as communication skills. It's looking at that and being able to go, right, okay, so I'm doing okay in terms of eating healthily, and sleep's not too bad kind of stuff, but I need to look at I'm smoking too much, I'm not being active enough kind of stuff. So it's looking at different aspects. So that's a very useful tool to use. And we can help and advise people in terms of that, and send out the wellbeing wheels so people can do it themselves. But it's just really, you don't even have to do it on a wellbeing wheel. It's just, get yourself a notepad and a piece of paper, and then take different aspects of your life, such as the relationships and friendships you have, family time that you have, exercise, food, and diet and sleep, and all of those kind of aspects, and just kind of say to yourself, be very, very real to yourself, or give yourself that score out of 10. How am I doing here at this current moment in time? And then, act appropriately. If there's anything that you want to change, then do it, but make sure that any changes that you bring into play are very, very small changes that are achievable. So if you want to eat healthily, for example, I'm going to start eating healthily from now on, you're never going to achieve that. Okay, that's too big. It's just, you're never going to achieve it. You'll fail. You'll fail after the last hurdle kind of stuff. I remember I used to smoke. So to give an example, I used to smoke. I never said once when I was stopping smoking, I'm going to quit smoking. All I said to myself was, I'm not going to smoke today. And it's very, very small, bite-sized chunk. And, 8 years later, I haven't returned to smoking kind of stuff. So, and did it without patches or anything else either.
Brilliant.
So it's using that. So if you want to eat healthily, don't kind of say, I'm going to start eating healthily from now on. It's too big. I think for you to be able to, too much for your brain to be able to, it's too big a task for your brain, because you need that dopamine hit when you achieve it, because that will motivate you to do it again. So if you want to eat healthily, it's today I'm going to eat a piece of fruit. I'm going to eat a piece of fruit every day. I'm going to eat an apple every day for the next 2 weeks. And each day that you eat an apple, you get a little dopamine hit, pleasure hit. And the next day you'll want to do it again to get that hit. It's nothing to do with the apple. It's a dopamine hit that your brain's getting kind of stuff. You'll keep doing it. So if you do it that way, it's being sensible. So about all of that. There's another tool as well. It's on their EventWell website. It's called the Every Mind Matters tool as well, which is awesome. We use it in partnership with Public Health England. Brilliant. So go on there once a month, find that tool under resources on there, answer 6 questions, and that is NHS, approved, it will give you recommendations. It's the NHS official app.
Brilliant.
So it will give you recommendations that you can do over the next kind of 4 weeks that will help and impact. So there's plenty of tools and different ways of doing it.
Well, fantastic. And yeah, I suppose World Mental Health Day is the perfect day to kind of start doing bits and pieces like that. So yeah, if anyone's looking for those sorts of things, make sure you check out the EventWell website for all of the different tools available. And thank you so much for joining me today, Helen. It's been lovely talking to you about all of this. Really great to hear, you know, more of the different opportunities and ways that people can get back to finding that comfort zone, getting back both out of their comfort zone into events, but making sure that they're comfortable with that as they go.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks,
Thank you
Laura.
very much.